Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video goes back to an old video that I did which talked about troop embarkation on the Huey. Now Fernando asked me, can this be done with multiple helicopters, like 3 with 18 soldiers? Yes, it can still be done, and Fernando asked me if I could make a video about it, so here it is. So let's get cracking. Okay, so here we are in the mission editor, and I've set up 3 different scenarios just to show you how this will work. I've got 3 helicopters with 9 troops at Nellis Air Force Base. I've also placed a Farp here on this mountain top, again with 3 helicopters. You can't see them, but 3 sets of 9 troops as well, so that's 18. And I've also set up one further north where it's a field base operation and there is no Farp whatsoever. It is very easy to set these up, but the simple rule that must be applied is do not use groups of helicopters. If you want to create this where troops will load, then you have to make them individual helicopters. Now behaviour is different on an airbase and a Farp to out in the field, and I'll show you how that works a little bit later on. And I'll also show you my preferred method for loading troops out in the field where there's no base, no airfield and no Farp. So let's get cracking. Okay, so let's start with loading troops at an airfield. And here we are at Nellis. As you can see, I've got Helo Nellis, 1 helicopter, not part of a group, it's just one single unit. Helo Nellis 001, and this should be Helo Nellis 002. So as you can see, they're individual helicopters. So let's go back to the first one. I've given it an embarking command, which is Troop 1 Nellis. So basically perform task, embarking. Then you select from the troops list here and add it, and it puts it into this box. But I've shown you all this before, so this is just an addendum. So they will load Troops 1 at Nellis, and I've given them an embark to transport. I've made the zone radius 300. I usually put 265 to 300. And the vehicle group it's going on to is a UH-1H. Now what I've also done for the troops is I've given them a second waypoint. So if we go to the second waypoint, it's out here. And that's where they'll head off to when they disembark from the helicopter. As far as the helicopters are concerned, I've put in waypoints with a disembarking command. And it's again the simple rule here. Drop down list, add Troops 1 Nellis. It's that sort of scenario. And I've done that for 3 helicopters and 3 sets of troops. It is a bit laborious, but this is the best method because the group situation doesn't tend to work. So individual units, individual troops. And basically, this is what happens. I'll show you in sim. Let's go there now. And here we are at Nellis. And the troops are moving out and will eventually load onto their helicopters. It will take a while, so what I will do is I will speed all of this up for you just so you can see it in quicker action, because otherwise you'll be as bored as hell trying to watch this. And there we go, that's all the troops loaded. And eventually the helicopters will start up and then take off. So let's move on to that now. And there we go. You'll notice that there was nothing untoward about the takeoff from an airfield once the troops are loaded. So let's see what happens when the helicopters land and drop the troops off. There we go, offloaded the troops, and they're off to their waypoint 2. And there you go, that went very sweetly. So that concludes the preparation of 9 troops, 3 helicopters, taking off from an airbase. So let's now move on to the Farp. Right, let's move on to the Farp scenario. Now my recommendation is that you use the 4 parking slot Farp. It's a little bit more complicated to set up because obviously what doesn't happen is the helicopters don't appear on each individual pad, they appear on the centre there. So it's a little bit complicated to set up to see which troops go to which pad, to which helicopter, but it's just simple. Click on the helicopter, again, individual unit, and put it in the parking slots 1, 2 and 3. I believe that's parking slot 1, that's parking slot 2 and that's parking slot 3. Don't quote me, you'll find out as you do it yourself. Like I say, a little bit more complicated to set up on the Farp because of that situation, but it's exactly the same setup as the airfield. There are embarking commands, Farp Troops 2. Here we have Farp Troop 2 and the embarking command. Zone radius 265. Like I said before, I usually put a radius of in around about 300, 265 to 300. And basically, it's that same setup as I did at the airfield for the Farp. So let's see that in action within the sim. Okay, so here we are at the Farp, and the troops will now start to load. By the way, if you get an issue with one set of troops not loading for any particular reason, just go back into the mission editor and adjust the embarking and disembarking. So delete them and reinstate them, if you see what I mean. Again, I won't bore you with it because it will take its time. So I'll speed it up and move on to when they take off. So now they're going to wend their merry way to their first waypoint and drop the troops off. So let's see what happens when they get there. What should happen is they should disembark and the troops should go to their waypoint 2. Right, we should be coming in for a landing very shortly. Now what you can do if you did want to is you could make the helicopters fly in formation by giving them the formation command. I don't tend to do that, not for the helicopters. Personal preference, but your choice. As you can see, the other 2 helicopters are coming in on approach. There we go. Drop the troops off. And they will wend their way to their waypoint 2. There we go. All the troops are now being dropped. And it's that easy. So now let's move on to the third and final method, where I have a particular preference because it doesn't quite work as people would expect it to. So let me show you that now. And here we are with the third and final option. And this version is picking up troops out in the field without a Farp, not from the airfield. So basically, again, what I've done is I've set up the helicopters as single units, troops as single units, and set them up in exactly the same way with the embarks and disembarks. And I've given them waypoints again, so for the helicopters and for the troops. So I'm going to show you what happens, and bear in mind that a lot of the things that are happening with the AI are work in progress anyway. So I'll show you what happens on the ground in this situation. And then I'll also show you an option that I have a preference for. So let's do that now. Here we are back in Sim, and the troops are making their way to the Helos, and let's see what happens. As you can see, unlike at the airfields and the Farps, the troops don't get straight on board the helicopters. Like I said, everything is work in progress. So what does happen when eventually the helicopters are powered up? Let me speed it up and I'll show you. Okay, so the Helos are now lifting off. As you can see, they've left the troops behind. Look what happens. So essentially, they take off, they land again, and then they load the troops. And then they'll take off again. There we go, that's what happened. So, what I'll do now is I'll show you my preference for setting up a field collection of troops. Right, back in the mission editor so I can show you this. What I do is, this particular helo is set up as in the air. Now my preference is out in the field for collection of troops is to have them fly in, land, embark and then take off. I just think that's quite realistic really. So again, the setup is exactly the same again, embarking, disembarking, but the only difference is for the field collection is that this helicopter will fly in and pick them up. So let's see that in the sim. Right, back in the desert with the helicopter. This is the air start version. What he'll do now is land and pick up those troops. Takes a little while, but he will do it. There we go, the troops get on board. As soon as they're all on board, he'll take off again. And there we go. So that's my preference for picking up troops out in the field that are not on a farm or not at an airfield. So Fernando, I hope you found that useful, as well as all the other viewers. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Ciao for now.